53 years ago, when I took my first stumbling steps on a stage, I certainly never dreamed that I would be one day accepting an award like this. And I want you to know that I'm particularly proud that it comes from the American Film Institute, whose wonderful, invaluable, important work over the last 10 years, its first decade, has been so impressive. And a deep bow to you, George, for your masterful leadership. I first committed myself to acting when I discovered that it was therapy for a very self-conscious young man. I could put on a mask, hide behind it, and pretend to be this brilliant man, the clever, witty fellow that the playwright had conceived. And I feel very lucky over the years to have been given a chance to pretend to be some pretty interesting characters. Tom Joad, Mr. Roberts, Clarence Darrow. I'm also pretty lucky, I feel, to have survived some easily forgettable ones. You know what they say, it's not how good you are, it's how long you last. I could wish my dad was here tonight. I know how proud he'd be. Who knows, he could be listening. When I decided to try the theater, it was a calculated risk. I gambled the relationship I had with my father, who was a man I not only respected, but whose approval I needed because I loved him. Joe Brando had more or less nudged me onto the stage of the Omaha Community Playhouse. And I discovered this magic of theater that I'd never known anything about. And for the whole 8 months of that first season, I was totally involved with all the many jobs that are around a little theater, building and painting scenery and hanging lights and pulling the curtain up. And at the end of the season, my dad decided that it was probably time that I thought seriously about making a living. And I was just out of college, and I got a job as a file clerk at the Retail Credit Company. But about 3 months later, Greg Foley, the director of the Playhouse, came back to Omaha, and he called me, and he said that he was going to open the new season with Merton to the Movies, and he wanted me to play Merton. When I announced this at home, my dad was appalled. And he made it very clear that he felt that it was a lot of nonsense. I had a good job. It was a chance for advancement, and he wasn't going to dream of letting me jeopardize this. Well, we had quite a fierce argument until my mother stepped in as a mediator. And I kept the job, and I rehearsed Merton evenings and weekends. I didn't see my father a great deal during those weeks. When we did meet, he gave me the silent treatment. It was a towering silence. And the message was clear that once I forgot this foolishness and concentrated on a business career, he would resume communication. Well, the family came to the opening. Incidentally, you know the story of Merton of the Movies? Merton is a young grocery clerk in a small town who kneels beside his cot every night and prays that God will make him a big movie star. Are you ready for that? We had the opening night, and the family did come, and my sister Harriet came back to the dressing room afterwards, and she said the family would wait for me at home. And I finally got home, and I came in the house, and Dad was sitting in Dad's chair behind his newspaper. So I joined my mother and my sisters, who immediately tried to outdo each other with superlatives, until Harriet began to say something that sounded as though it might become a criticism. And Dad's paper came down and he said, "Shut up, he was perfect." I guess that's the best notice I ever got. And just a year later, after I'd learned that you got paid for this foolishness in New York, and I decided to quit my job and try to make it on Broadway, my dad was totally supportive. I remember telling my boss that I was going to quit. He went into shock. He said, "Fonda, I was going to send you to the home office in Atlanta." Just think, I might have been the branch manager of the retail credit company. One of the wonderful things that have happened in my life is the long, enduring, and close friendships that I've made, and a great many of them have come here tonight to stand up for me. I've known John Swope for 50 years. Dorothy McGuire told you that she was my Cinderella when she was only 13. Then they found each other and are living happily ever after. Jim Stewart and I have been friendly competitors since 1932. I told my Betty Davis story last year when you honored her. But Betty, I've just remembered that night I kissed you in the back seat of Hunter's car. That was a full year before I joined John Swope and Josh Logan and Kent Smith at the University Players. So really our friendship. 51. That's what I said. Your arithmetic's better than mine. Where are you? Lucille Ball. I dated Lucy once. I guess you could say I didn't really plight my troth. I cry myself to sleep a lot because if I had plighted my troth properly, they might have changed the name of that studio to Henry Lou. I would have bet you that wild horses couldn't have dragged Barbara Stamnick to a microphone tonight. But there she was, God bless her. I fell in love with Barbara when we did Lady Eve. I'm still in love with her, and Shirley's learned to live with it. Fred McMurray, Richard Burton, Lloyd Nolan, Jim Garner, Jane Alexander. We just closed Saturday in Washington, this marvelous play, wonderful experience. Ronnie, Dick Widmark, Jack Lemmon, all of you who were gracious enough to come here tonight. Thank you. I'm proud to be in the same fraternity. I suppose you've noticed that I surrounded myself with family tonight for comfort and protection. You've met a couple of them up here already. I'd like you to meet the others. They don't have to stand up. That's Shirley with two E's in the middle. Every good thing that ever happens to me is always just twice as good because I get to share it with her, like tonight. On Shirley's right is my son, the hyphenate. Peter is the original hyphenate. When he was 12 years old in a boarding school, he organized the theater group, wrote the play, directed it, built the scenery, and played 3 parts. Really, and can you wonder that I'm in awe of him? On his right is his Bridget going on 15. Next to her, Justin, one of the great hitters in the Little League. Next to Justin is Peter's wife, Montana rancher, Portia. On the other side of Shirley is Jane's family, who are, there's been a little... They had to go to bed. One of them had to go to bed. I was sorry I couldn't at least, Tom had to take Troy, the youngster, up to bed. Just about 15 minutes ago, so he's missing this. But I wanted to say that Tom Hayden, who's Jane's husband, makes me think of a lot of parts that I've played, the Mavericks and the Dissenters, only he ain't play acting. And that little one next to the empty chair is my Vanessa, the Girl Scout dropout. And then there's my youngest daughter, Amy, who's down from Colorado, where she's preparing for her master's in social work. Does that make her the white sheep of the family? In the years since my dad has left us, I've done some things I know that he wouldn't have approved. I hope I've done some that he would defend. I know he'd bust his buttons tonight. He never met my children, but I know he'd be proud. I can hear Dad answering somebody criticizing Jane. Shut up, she's perfect. Right on, Dad. That's really it, except to thank all of you, every one of you, for coming here and supporting the American Film Institute. You can believe it's been a very special night that I'll never forget in my life. That last mile there that's a traumatic experience. I don't really recommend it. Thank you very much.